My guest here today in Grizzly Media is on the phone. This is a former Bull Street Bullies who play for the Flyers. Please welcome Riley Cote. Hi, Riley. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Fine, thank you. First of all, Riley, why hockey and not another sport?
Well, just being from middle of Canada, Winnipeg, Manitoba. Was born and raised around it. Both my parents had season tickets to Winnipeg Jets. It seemed like every kid played hockey. Every street corner there was either an outdoor rink, an indoor rink, or a pond. So it just seemed fitting that I'd get into hockey. And I feel like as early as I can remember that I loved hockey and I wanted to be a hockey player. So I go back to my childhood, and hockey was obviously the most important thing to me in my life. So it stuck around, and I was able to find my way and play pro hockey. So it's been a blessing for sure.
When you are young, your father played with you?
He did. My dad never played. I think the highest he played was some sort of junior B league outside of Winnipeg. But he certainly coached me. He built a little rink in our garden out back, and he was always on the ice with me. But certainly my number one supporter and best coach I had.
Who inspired you, your idol? This is Teemu Selanne or another player?
You know what? It wasn't Teemu Selanne. I love Teemu, but I think growing up, there was other guys that I kind of gravitated towards, and it wasn't even so much because they were the best player on the team. But I won a Scott Arniel jersey one year when I was, I think, 7. So I always wore number 11, and only because of that, really. And I kind of had a connection with him because of that. And then there was guys like Mike Eagles and Ty Domi that kind of came through, Winnipeg, along with a couple others, Chris King, and just, workers and checkers and guys that, kind of did what they had to do. I think I always kind of gravitated towards those types of guys, but thinking at the time I was still, a hockey player, I liked Mark Messier and those types of guys, more the power forward type. But, there's a few names there anyways, but the biggest one, and only because I won his jersey, was Scott Arniel. I still have a thing for number 11 since then. He wore that when he was in the Winnipeg Jets, so that's about it.
Riley, I don't want to put you in a stereotype, but were you always a type of goon and always looking for a fight on the ice?
No, I was never like that, honestly, until I turned pro. If you look at my stats in the junior hockey league, in my first couple of years, I played more of a grinder role. I think my first year I had the most fights in my whole junior career. It may have been like 8 or 9. And they were more spontaneous fights and just, fights out of, frustration, whatever you want to call it. Never really identified myself as a fighter. You know what I mean? I wasn't scared of anybody, but I didn't, I didn't make that a part of my, my job description per se. My last 2 years in juniors, I put up decent numbers, playing more of a offensive role, some power play time. Put up 52 points. I think 1 year, 28 goals my last year. So not terrible. Obviously, in the grand scheme of offensive players, not great either. So I'm realistic, and as I got closer to my junior career ending, I had to make a decision how I was gonna find my way in the NHL or pro ranks and ultimately to the NHL. And I was looking at the guys getting called up. There was a lot of guys with a lot of goals and points and a lot of penalty minutes. And I just I realized without being drafted, I was never drafted. I was a free agent that I needed to make a splash. I needed to get noticed as quick as possible, and that was for me fighting. Well, not that it was easier, but it was easier to get a fight than score a goal with the amount of ice time that I was getting. So I turned pro, and I just decided to fight everyone and their brother. Most penalty minutes and the biggest guy on every team I'd go after. I kind of circled them on the game sheet there, and kind of knew that it was probably going to happen, if not the next time I played them. And still try to work on my skating and everything else, and play, be a hockey player. But the way I'm wired, if I buy into something and I'm going to do something, I do it 110% full force. And so I probably went a little bit overboard and a little bit extreme with how I played, but. I got noticed, and and I was able to move up that way, and it worked for me. Unfortunately, the way I played wasn't exactly sustainable, meaning that the physical body, can only keep up with so much that you can instill on it, and then the mind and the spirit go along with it. So it's taxing. fighting is hard on the body, it's hard on the mind. The anxieties of fighting aren't normal. Most people don't stay in that fight response for a 6-7 month period where you're constantly worrying about fighting in the next fight. It's not normal behavior nor thought process. So it takes its toll. So I mean, it served its purpose. I was able to achieve what I wanted to achieve out of it. Unfortunately, how hard I went on the ice and how hard I went off the ice, it took its toll, and eventually I had to read the writing on the wall, and I was forced to. But I decided to retire at the age of 28. Mainly because my physical body was so beat up that going to the minors and fighting 30 times a year for guys that are hungrier than I was at the time, it didn't make any sense to me. So that was when I decided to get out of playing hockey and get into coaching.
If you want to change something, what do you change?
If I answer that question, realistically, I'm not sure I would have changed a thing because, I think that's the beauty of life is it kind of makes you who you are today, and you learn from some of your mistakes. But, now that I know a lot more than I did when I was playing and how the system operates and how corporate sports work, I mean, I certainly would have spent a little more time actually working on the fundamentals of hockey. I worked on my skating a lot. I think I should have done a lot more skill stuff. I was spending my time training MMA a little bit and Greco-Roman wrestling, that type of stuff to, really kind of give myself an edge or, at least, bring myself up to, the likes of some of these other tough guys, fighting-wise. So I spent more time worrying about being a fighter than a hockey player. So that would be one of them, but in the same sense, it was live by the sword, die by the sword. That was kind of who I was. My character. I'm a stand-up guy, and it kind of fit who I was for the time being. I wish I could have been a little bit smarter with some of the things I did off the ice, but again, I think that my recklessness on and off the ice made me, forced me to retire at the age of 28 because I think that was kind of the universe telling me I couldn't keep going the way I was. So. Parts of me wishes I could have changed something, but parts of me I'm thankful that I did it the way I did it, so life could slap me in the face a little bit and keep me in check and get me on the straight and narrow. So I'm thankful for that.
I know that your body talked to you at the age of 28, but you have to retire. Do you regret sometime this decision? Someday do you think, I can play hockey next season, or I want to be back just for a couple of games, or this is something you thought sometimes?
I never regretted retiring. I knew deep down in my heart that I had to do it. It was for the best. It was for the best for my my body, my mind, and just to move on and again, kind of find myself, I guess you want to call it that. It's, being a hockey player is temporary. You can't be a hockey player forever. Being a fighter is temporary. And that's not really who I was as a person. It was what I did and what I did, professionally in sports. It wasn't who I was, but I feel like my whole life has been me as a hockey player. My identity has been a hockey player, and then a fighter, and then, an enforcer, and it's all been, it was all somewhat fake, it's not real, it's not who I am, as a person. So I feel like I had some soul searching to do. I feel like, a lot of the stuff I was doing was really feeding the ego and not my spirit. And, and then I was pounding on a daily basis, grinding my physical body, fighting, hands, face, everything between shoulders, knees. And it was just, I guess I came to the realization of, for what? Is this really making me happy, 10, 15 years from now, and drinking and partying and grinding my body up that way? So I really needed to make a decision for my life more than anything that, what's going to give me the best chance to be successful on the other side of this if I make it through this, If I keep being a meathead and keep fighting and drinking and partying and doing all these things that are unsustainable, how much longer and how high of a quality of life can I actually live like this? And so for me, it was an easy decision. And I never really looked back and said, wow, I wish I would have never retired. I really regret that because I still love hockey. I still play rec hockey. I still love being in shape and love taking care of my body, which I've learned to do now. which I never really learned to take care of my body, to learn how to train it. And, there's all kinds of things that I've learned that have kind of brought me happiness, where, the actual hockey or the role within the hockey game didn't really necessarily bring me that happiness. So I'm grateful and thankful. I don't look back and say, I wish I was still playing. There's days I feel really good where I'm like, geez, I could still play. I'm probably in better shape than some of these guys, and I don't even train for hockey. But I do know the wear and tear of just the way hockey is, and I'm kind of over being injured. I'm kind of over being, constantly, trying to get my body to feel good enough to fight someone that's 6'5" guy. I'm over that. You know what I mean? I think that I'm way beyond that, and I'm happy to have found my health and my well-being through, some hardships and hard times through hockey and pro sports.
Like you said before, you have never been drafted by an NHL team. What is your best moment? This is your first goal against Carey Price. This is your first NHL game. What it is?
Probably my first NHL shift. I think for me, it kind of summed up everything. Being able to grind it out and make it to the NHL. But my first NHL shift, I literally stepped on the ice and did a full sprint across the ice and ran Sean Hill. And it was a really good hit, but it was just kind of like, it just almost like summed me up in a nutshell, because it was just like me, proving everyone wrong and just doing it the hard way and just being, literally a fighter, but not a fighter in that sense, but just like to keep grinding it out and doing it. And it was fitting. And it just kind of solidified my beliefs that, if you really want something, you can achieve it, because I was never a fighter. I've been in a handful of fights my whole life until I got into hockey. And I saw a market for it. I knew I was, strong enough mentally to do it. It was just something that I decided to do. It's called role playing for a reason, except for you actually have to back it up if you want to be a role player. So I learned how to do that. I had the right attitude, and I think the rest is history. But certainly that first stride I took on the ice, I'll never forget it, because it felt like everything I had done and how hard I worked my whole life for is, finally being rewarded. So I think that moment, specifically, the goal I scored one NHL goal. It meant nothing to me. I think we were down 4-1 against Montreal. I lined up. It was actually not a bad goal, but the fact that I couldn't really celebrate was when it was 4-1 with a couple minutes left in the game, or 5-1. So the game was out of reach. So, to me, if I could have scored a few more goals, it would have been nice, but it really doesn't bother me a whole lot. It was a bonus to me. For me, it was sticking up for my teammates, generating energy and fights that certainly created energy as well. So that was kind of what I trained to do when I decided I was going to pursue playing the NHL realistically, and that was the identity I took. So my goal was always to be top 3 in fighting majors or penalty minutes, because then I knew that I was involved, and I was engaged, and I was doing my job. So. And I had to make a name for myself. I wasn't Don Brashear or George LaRocque or any of these guys. I had to fight these guys to get some street credit. So, that was what I had to do. It certainly wasn't an easy task. I'm undersized compared to those guys. And, it's just about heart and will. I think for me, that's, sums up my life, and, how I'm able to navigate through life is because I believe in certain processes, and whether it's right or wrong, my approach, depending if you're someone evaluating me from the outside in, you could probably say a lot of things I could have done differently, but I think, the amount of effort and passion I put into it, again, with or without doing the exact right things, I probably could have done things a lot differently. But, as far as, functionality of how I train and functionality, how I was, playing the game and fighting and all that stuff, yeah, I could have probably done things a lot better, but I think that, spirit and everything is what, allowed me to do what I was able to do, which, for me, it was just, I wanted to play one NHL game. I wound up playing 160. So, in the grand scheme of things, that's not much, but, for my life and where I come from and for my, hockey ability and everything, I'm fortunate enough to do that, so.
I'm very curious about the next one. Who was the most competitive fight you had, and was with who?
Well, I had, there's probably 4 or 5 guys I would lump into that category. Donald Brashear, I think I fought him 4 or 5 times. The first one being the best one. I think that one was in preseason, which kind of, I think, earned me my spot with the Flyers. But he certainly kicked my ass the hardest, probably out of all of them. You got me caught in the corner one time and sealed my eyes shut pretty good. You know, I wound up fighting him again later in the game because I wanted a rematch, and it wasn't much a rematch, kind of fell over, but. He probably kicked my ass the worst. Had some really good ones with, Sean Thornton, Brian McGrattan. I actually had a couple good ones with, George Larocque. For a guy that size and experience. We kind of fight somewhat similar, even though he's much heavier. But both lefties, well, obviously for sure as well. But he fights much different than Larocque does. But guys more my size. Aaron Ashram had a really good one with us a couple times. And, those ones are more open fights, more toe to toe type of fights. Jody Shelley had a couple good ones, but certainly the most challenging ones were probably with Brashear and Larocque, because I was kind of just trying to hang on for life and not get totally killed. So
after you retire as a hockey player, you have do a coaching job in the EHL. How was the experience?
It was really good, yeah. And the American Hockey League was a great league. It's where I started off with the Phantoms. Before I played with the Flyers, it's the Flyers minor league team, so it was obviously a great opportunity. And I've seen, some guys looking for coaching jobs, and they start in junior hockey or East Coast Hockey League. But I was fortunate enough to get an American Hockey League job. I think that was what made the decision much easier. Is I had a good job within the organization. Unfortunately, I understand that coaching is much like playing. The shelf life is somewhat short, and you're not going to be there forever. So. But it was a good transition for me to learn, another side of the game and study the game and learn from some great coaches that played in the NHL. So, that was great. At one point I really, was wanting to pursue the head coaching job and be a head coach, but I realized, my own personal views that, pro sports and corporate sports are, somewhat toxic. You're in the business of winning. And when you're not winning, it's never a good move. You know what I mean? And I guess I had learned once I retired that, you have to surround yourself with positivity. Positive food choices, positive people, positive energies, and I guess we didn't have very good teams the first few years I was coaching there. So a lot of losing, and there's a lot. I guess you call it toxicity. It's just, you're in the business of winning, and when you don't win, it's never a good thing for anybody. People lose their jobs. So I kind of lost, not passion, but just the drive to become, the head guy and, to pursue that. And recently, I actually coached for 7 years up until this past season, and I've recently broke free, and I'm on my own now and doing my own thing. And it's not going to be in corporate sports, but I'll certainly always tie in what I do with sports, integrate what I do with sports. But it served its purpose. I learned a lot, and I still had the ability to be part of a game that I love. But I think in life you realize, at times of your life that some things serve you and some things don't serve you, and you got to follow your heart. And do what's best for you in your life, and that for me that's what it is. I felt like I needed to move on and needed to follow a couple other passions of mine, and again, these passions I believe can really be integrated with sports, and kind of currently are, but they're just not mainstream yet.
Only 2 questions remaining. The next one, I have to look with you about your career and life. You have played in the NHL, win the Man of the Year with Phantom in the American Hockey League in 2006-2007, been a coach in the EHL. You are married with a beautiful wife. You are a father. I think you are the more pride.
Yeah, you know what, and that's, I think I kind of talked about that earlier, is, some things you see in life that you think that we glorify material things, and the ego craves, material things. I think that's, hockey is a material thing. It's, it's ego driven, and, that was my dream. That's what I wanted to do, but it didn't really necessarily serve my soul and bring me that happiness and that true joy that I would have thought that it would have brought me, to tell you the honest truth. And maybe it was because I was, living hard off the ice as well. And there's other things with fighting, and it takes its toll. But it wasn't until I got married and had two kids. My first daughter obviously really kind of changed my mind on and perspective on life. But then the second one comes around, and it gives you a whole new meaning for life. And I think my children and my family, lands up being the most important to me, because without them, I don't think that the happiness that you're trying to find in life is experienced, until you have these things. And for me, it's certainly changed my whole life, my whole perspective on life, and it just drives me even more, just in a different way. So I mean, I've always been a driven person, and just I just got to shift my efforts and knowledge and into my new career path and my family, which it's all about wellness and staying healthy as a family and as an individual.
The last one for you, Riley. What's next for the older number 32 of the Flyers? I know that you work with the Hemp Heals Foundation. Can you talk about it and your future?
Yeah, so when I retired in 2011, that whole last season, I kind of had an awakening, started becoming more enlightened to, things that feed the soul and feed the body versus things that, destroy it and steal spirit. And, changed my nutrition habits and started, removing certain things from my diet and adding certain things. And again, starting removing toxic substances from my life, such as alcohol. I really stopped drinking for a long period of time there, and learned to respect alcohol and learned to respect food and other substances. And I just thought I had a completely different shift in consciousness on how to approach life and how Mother Nature works and how medicine works and all this good stuff. And I started learning, about cannabis and hemp. And I really started understanding the nutritional profile of the hemp seed and, digestible protein source, perfectly balanced omega-3 to 6 to 9 fatty acids and fiber and trace minerals, all this good stuff. So I started learning about that. I already knew about the recreational and medical cannabis. But I was inspired by this that I just started reading. I started reading about, the history of hemp and cannabis throughout all cultures across the globe in the last 10,000 years, and understanding botanicals and Mother Nature as healers, and Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, Eastern medicine, and kind of the system we have set up in the West. And I really got passionate about cannabis, learning why it's illegal in the first place, and learning about prohibition, and I just started really having a passion for it, where I started the 501c3 Hemp Heals Foundation, and it was really kind of to educate, inspire, empower people, and promote industrial hemp as a viable agricultural crop that could help the farmers, help local economy, and help physical bodies and minds and spirits heal. So it's pretty deep, but it's not that deep if you just understand, food sources and textiles and sustainable agriculture that can help, change the way we do things. We're self-polluting ourselves. All our industries are very toxic. All the things we put in our body seem to be pretty toxic and destructive. We've kind of lost sight of the things that matter in life, and we've been disconnected from Mother Nature. So the Hemp Heals Foundation is really to promote all that stuff, wellness, general wellness, but cannabis and hemp specifically as a centerpiece. From the hemp seed to the CBD cannabidiol, which is a compound in cannabis that has no psychoactive properties, but has a ton of anti-inflammatory properties, a ton of healing properties, promotes rest, helps with anxiety, helps manage pain, derived from the industrial hemp plant. So I can go on and on and on this, but it's such a perfect plant that it can help all people. It can help all people across the planet, with a food source, textile source, building source, and medicine all within one plant if you just allowed it. We just were allowed to grow it and let it flourish the way we're supposed to. So, I feel like my duty now is to educate and spread the good word. And now we're seeing in different countries and different states that they're all changing the laws because people are catching on. We've been fundamentally misled, and now in the age of information, ignorance is a choice. So people are, learning, and they're seeing the value of this. And we're changing the way we do industry, and rightfully so, because it is a non-toxic plant. It is a very sustainable and renewable crop, and it could really change the way we do things. Not even just here in the U.S., but obviously in Canada, you guys have been growing it for 22 years, but just the seed and seed oil. But it needs to be bigger than that, and it needs to be a global economic shift in the way we do things. And I think hemp is a solution for that, as well as just a physical illness. We're sick culture right now. We need help. We need medicine, and there's a reason why all these medical cannabis laws are coming up, and all this legislation in the hemp space is all getting introduced. Is because it works. It heals, and that's the way we've been doing things forever. So I've pretty much dedicated my whole life to doing this and educating and putting on different events and concerts and stuff like that. And it's only going to get bigger and better.
Just to close, if somebody wants to hear more or just to read more about the Hemp Heals Foundation, how you can do?
Yes, it's hemphealsfoundation.com, and that would be probably the best source of what we do to put on some hempcrete workshops and music festivals. We actually got our next one on Friday here, and it's only going to get bigger and better. Now we're kind of integrating the CBD and cannabidiol into sports, so you're going to see a kind of movement, on the recovery side for athletes, and I'm going to be promoting that and hopefully change the game.
Righty, Cote, thank you for your time.
No problem. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Have a nice day.
All right. Take care.